So usually it really comes down to what people say, right? People comment about something they heard when they worked in the government or when they worked at the Pentagon, right? There's the great granddaughter, for example, of Eisenhower, who's Laura Eisenhower. She said, right, and she's even been to Brazil, she's been to events and all that. She even mentioned that this General Icky got the United States government to enter into treaties with alien entities, aliens. If that's true or not, I don't know, but she was President Eisenhower's granddaughter, right? And she used to say that, she used to mention that. Besides that, she expressed a concern. You know, usually when she takes part in events, when she gives lectures and so on, she says that planet Earth is under attack. Yeah, yeah, and pretty much, like it's a game with some beings and so on. That's what she says, right? And no evil being can survive if we are united and have positive thoughts. That's her idea, right? So, like, she understands that there are negative beings, that might be taking advantage, and doing harm to our earthly civilization. And that, in her idea, the countries, right, should unite, the whole world should unite so that we could survive this situation, and that no more negative bad being could prevail and dominate in these attacks that have happened, according to her, right? Yeah, if there's any document about this, it hasn't come to light until today. So there's a lot of speculation, a lot of theory, of conspiracy in this matter as well. But what do we have that's most relevant and recent about the presidents? I could be talking about several other presidents here as well. But I wanted to jump ahead in time, right? Because since we're going to talk about presidents, we'll also talk about other topics. I wanted to jump to Barack Obama. Barack Obama, he up to a certain point some time ago, he used to say that this is nonsense, that UFOs don't exist and so on. And then suddenly he changed his position. Today, he has already revealed that the United States has videos of UFOs. He said that it's true, that the subject is serious, right? He said that what I'm talking about is really serious, and that there are recordings and footage of objects in the sky that the Americans don't know what they are. So, like Barack Obama, he changed his stance a lot, his rhetoric over the years, right? Probably right at the beginning when he left the presidency, he might have signed a confidentiality agreement. He didn't say anything. Well, when he saw that other presidents, for example, Trump, started talking about this more openly, those allegations started coming out. I think that's what he thought. I'm not going to be left behind and then end up looking like a liar because I said one thing and in reality it's something else. There's fear. So now he has completely changed his position. This is very positive because we can see that really the presidents know that something has been happening for a long time. And they unfortunately have an order, they have regulations, they have something to maintain that secrecy. But here's the thing now, the news is there was a Joe Rogan podcast, right, just recently in 2024. And Donald Trump, who is running for president, he said that if he wins the election, he will release new UFO videos. And he even mentioned there that he interviewed some pilots, right, and heard several stories about these objects. Strange flying objects, right, flying at, well, absurd speeds, right, without any apparent propulsion, round objects, and so on. And during the podcast, he even mentioned like these people coming from space, right? So, I mean, it was a term that to my ear sounded like something non human bodies, right? Or maybe he said it to refer to the UFO crew members, right? But it's a strong thing to say, right? that they are people coming from space. I mean, not from Earth, it's something from outside, right? This coming from a presidential candidate and someone who was also president of the United States some time ago, that sounds very positive, right? We can see that something is about to happen, right? There will be a new hearing now on November 13th, also in the US Congress, where new disclosures are expected to come up, okay? So there's a lot going on in the United States, and it seems like the presidents who are running are also tuned in, trying to do something. If they'll be able to release anything, I don't know. I think it's very unlikely that'll happen, right? Because there's very strong control from the Pentagon, from the military of this shadow government. They're the ones who are really in charge above the presidents, especially when it comes to the UFO issue, because of the greed they have for alien technology. To do reverse engineering, to get something more substantial regarding the technology of these unidentified flying objects, which they're now calling UAPs, right? Which would be the unidentified anomalous phenomenon, right? So, about the presidents, I'd like to wrap this up here, okay? There were other presidents, Reagan, right? Ronald Reagan, who also talked about this, made statements on television. He even talked with leaders from the Soviet Union. This was some time ago, right? There is material about these speeches, right? Also on the internet for anyone who wants to see it. And so we notice that they are contextualized, but there is some cover up. For example, Bill Clinton, he tried to find out about what had arrived at Area 51 in 96 when the Virginia case happened, right? A plane arrived there at Area 51 in Groom Lake, and he tried to use the law available to him to try to find out what it was, what arrived. On a plane that came from South America and arrived there in Groom Lake, landed. There was a different kind of cargo there, but he couldn't find out either, right? He contacted the leader of the US Congress, and unfortunately, to this day, he still wasn't briefed, or that letter he wrote trying to request that information wasn't answered, right? About Bill Clinton as well. So there are countless US presidents who have had some involvement from 1947 onwards, but I'll stop here.